question that I wanted to ask you, and that really I think all of us are thinking, is when you came here tonight, what imperfections did you see in yourself? If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? While you're texting, I'm going to read you a story. A man awoke one day with the idea that he would try to improve all people living in the city. I'll go from door to door, from person to person, from neighborhood to neighborhood, spreading my ideas and goodwill, he thought. I'll preach cooperation and understanding. As he continued to ponder over this Herculean project, he decided that improving the entire city might be too enormous an undertaking. He felt that perhaps he ought to concentrate on his immediate neighborhood first. The more he thought about it, the more he was convinced that even the task of improving his neighborhood was too difficult. Maybe, he thought, the people on my street, or maybe the people in my apartment house. Then he thought out loud, if I'm going to improve anybody, I need to begin with myself. So as we read all the different things that you could change about yourself, we see that there's so many common grounds with the people in this room. Whether we came together or not, so many people want to become more focused and have more patience and more time to spend with those people who they care about. There's so much that this texting does to unite all of us because we're only one voice, but right now we're a congregation. Tonight we sit together and honor the holiday of Yom Kippur. Some of us are here because that's what God expects of us as Jews, while others of us don't have to look at such a lofty source for our guilt. We can simply pick up the phone and hear our parents ask, "So what are you doing for the holidays?" Either way, I actually think that many of us are here tonight for a far different reason. I feel as though, like me, many of us sought out an experience where we could safely sit in our discomfort, anxiety, and introspection as we wrestle together with this Jewish notion of God's harsh judgment of our marked and imperfect individual existences. This holiday, unlike Rosh Hashanah's celebration last week, is painted with imagery of God's giant judging hand, notating who shall live and who shall die in this next year. Yom Kippur, the Day of Judgment, is a quest to make whole that which has been broken, to repair that which is damaged, and to reconnect with that which has become separate or bent. So I have a question. Have you ever seen a straight shofar? It's a legit question. Okay. Well, there's a reason for that. According to Jewish law, a shofar must be crooked or bent. So a shofar is the ram's horn, and it must be crooked or bent. In tractate that in the Talmud section that deals specifically with this holiday, it must be bent. In fact, the symbolism of blowing a crooked shofar serves as a visual metaphor for our human journey. When we look into the mouth of the shofar, we cannot see out the other end. We have no idea where the twists and turns will bring us, but we trust that somehow our voices will emerge out the other side stronger and more complete. This season asks of us to look closely at ourselves and find places where we need to return to our paths, to complete our wholeness. It challenges us to dig deep inside ourselves into those dark hidden corners to find those actions and behaviors that caused us separation from ourselves and others. Those things we said and did that colored our names with shades of failure, disappointment, and brokenness. And if you're like many people around this world, you walk around this life feeling like something within you is a bit disconnected, a bit off, worn down, or out of order. It's as if over time, the weight of the world on our shoulders has caused us to begin to bend and crack from the gargantuan pressures we face each day. Each relationship breakup, dream job lost, untimely death of a family member or friend, everything that bumps us off our course seems to crack at the facade of wholeness that we desperately try to maintain and believe as we move forward on our paths. Do you remember the story of the 10 Commandments? Well, like 3 of you do. Moses, I'll tell you, so if you didn't remember or you did not admit to remembering, I'll tell you. Moses ascended Mount Sinai and was given a set of tablets by God to bring back down to the Israelites who remained at the bottom of the mountain. Carved into by fire, the white stone of the commandments were to be cherished guidelines by which our ancestors would follow on their journey throughout the desert and eventual entry into the promised land. Moses carefully descended the mountain, tablets sturdily in hand, and was horrified with what he saw our ancestors building in his absence, a golden calf, a non-Adonai image for which to worship. The Jews had lost faith that there was a God, and therefore in their brokenness began praying to the calf. So do you remember what Moses' response was now with a little bit of a, like 7 of you? Moses took the tablets over Moses' head and smashed them into pieces, shattering stone as far as the eye could see. Upon grasping what had happened, the Israelites became terrified and shocked. "Please," they cried, "we were scared and thought you would never return, and therefore we built this calf. We were feeling so completely alone, we needed something to believe in who would help us find our way out of this desert." Moses understood our people's plea and returned up the mountain to speak to God on our behalf. After much discussion with God, and the sages tell us that God was grateful, actually, that Moses smashed the first set, God explained that the broken tablets represented the shattered pieces of human existence, and that even in our brokenness, there's a story to tell. Truth can not only be found in our wholeness, but also, sometimes even primarily, in the broken fragments of our human spirit. Understanding this notion, Moses descended Mount Sinai a second time, his hands tightly grasping around a new, complete set of tablets, and handed it to the Israelites, who shouted elatedly in Adonai's honor. Our Midrash tells us that the Israelites then gathered all the shattered and broken pieces of the first set of tablets from across the desert floor and placed them together in the Holy Ark, the Holy of Holies, alongside the new, intact second set of tablets. With broken and complete sets of tablets in the Ark, the Israelites made their way to the Promised Land, inspired by God's forgiveness and understanding that all individuals, like the tablets, are both complete and broken at the same time. There are moments in each of our lives when God seeks for us to connect with him as a whole and complete individual, like when we give thanks and celebrate along with God when good things happen in our lives. But there are yet darker moments, the scarier, more alone moments, when God desires that we search for him to help us feel connected, loved, and not alone. We all contain both sets of tablets within us. So the difficult task becomes enjoying the whole tablets, even when they are paired with the broken ones. For having broken parts of us reminds us that there are times we need to reach out to each other for help, for support, for a little perspective. We ought to remember not to run from our brokenness or bumps in the road, not only because they bring us closer to each other and to God, but because what if those cracks, those bumps in the road, those situations that make us feel the most confused and disconnected from ourselves and God are actually the intended journey to our completeness, the exact path that God set forth for us to follow in order for us to eventually feel whole. Jeff was an avid athlete, popular and handsome. Then he was diagnosed with osteogenic sarcoma. In order to save his life, doctors had to amputate his leg. Jeff awoke from the surgery a different young man. He was angry and resentful and bitter. He believed his life was over now that his body was imperfect, even with his new prosthetic leg. Jeff became addicted to drugs and alcohol, and a concerned football coach of his recommended that he go see a therapist. In their first visit, the doctor asked Jeff to draw a picture of his body. He angrily scribbled a vase with a large crack in it, then, tearing up the paper as he finished the drawing, exclaimed, "I'm damaged." Without his knowledge, the doctor collected the 2 pieces of paper that was once his drawing and placed it within her desk. Over time and therapy, Jeff began to come out of his anger and depression, and even started volunteering at the hospital where he was once in need of help. One day, Jeff meets a young woman his age recovering from a double mastectomy that would barely look up from her hospital bed when he walked into the room. After several attempts, Jeff quickly looked down at his prosthetic leg and got an idea. Dramatically, Jeff took it off and started hopping around the room like a bunny. The young girl hysterically started laughing, and Jeff had showed her that although his body didn't have all its parts, he was still a complete young man who could bring joy to others. Eventually, the two did get married, but that's not the end of the story. On the day of the wedding, Jeff's therapist pulled out the drawing that Jeff had made years ago in her office of the cracked vase. Studying it, Jeff looked at the drawing and said, "You know what? It's really not finished." And then, taking a yellow highlighter out of his pocket, Jeff drew vibrant yellow lines extending out of the crack in the vase. The doctor gave Jeff a puzzled look. Smiling, Jeff replied, "The crack, this break, it's where the light can shine through and help what's inside the vase to grow." Jeff understood what so many of us can't seem to understand unless we were in his position. Although at first he saw his sickness and differing ability as a detriment, Jeff was able to see that he was actually a stronger, more complete person after his cancer and amputation, not despite them. His struggle to come to terms with his bump in the road, his horrible situation, actually took him on a different path that he could have originally never seen or even chosen. A path that placed the broken and complete side by side within his body and mind and led him to a life of more completeness. So what if our bruises, our bends, our cracks actually do make us stronger and more complete? Ernest Hemingway said, "The world breaks everyone, and afterwards some are stronger in the broken places." This high holiday season, we are challenged to remember that we are created the way we are to be. The places we end up and the people who come into our lives are either lessons or blessings, but either way, they can be both at the same time. We are challenged to ask for forgiveness from one another, not because of who that person is or who that person isn't, but how they use themselves to take away from who we are. The Day of Atonement reminds us that God will forgive us if we're written in the book for another year, but that the real struggle is to go to your neighbor, to go to your friend, to go to yourself, and not only extend an apology, but to accept one. I pray that as we move into this new year, we'll be blessed with the skills of our ancestors who gathered the broken fragments of our 10 Commandments together. For there are broken fragments and pieces all around us and within us. The fragments of broken dreams and broken relationships, the pieces of broken loves and broken lives, the fragments of who we were and who we wanted to become. To live in the real world is to experience brokenness, incompleteness, and frustration. But this season presents us with the opportunity to understand more clearly why the intact tablets and broken tablets were both kept together in the ark, why we must have both brokenness and wholeness. I pray that we are able to gather all of those pieces and fragments into ourselves and boldly carry them all within us as we begin this new year, striving to both celebrate our completeness and work towards fixing our brokenness. Amen.